Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy. Happy nearly Friday.
Nearly Friday, pre-recording today's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, technology, change, innovation. This week, we're going to have a look at the news and kind of major on AI, bit of regulation, talking about data centers. Riveting. So let's get into it. Shall we do AI regulation first, Ben? I think quite enjoy this topic.
We can't stop talking about it. So I thought rather than try and avoid talking about it, I'll talk about it a lot this week. So this is a good article by Simon Cooper of the FT, and he's really making the case that we're not going to regulate AI anytime soon. Because we tend not to do that as governments, generally speaking. And there's a number of reasons for this, but he starts off really with these, what might be hype or whatever, from the CEOs of the firms themselves, who say that, so Sam Altman says, the fear and anxiety about AI is justified. I do not think it is right that a few AI labs will make the most consequential decisions about our future. It's all very dramatic. But Cooper makes the point, well, that is going to happen because that is what's happening right now. And that's what governments seem to be encouraging, including Trump. And businesses are fighting to not have AI particularly regulated. Plus, you know, there are a lot of examples from recent history of where we've regulated way too late. It's taken too long. So, CO2 emissions being one example of global warming was known about a long time ago. Tobacco, cigarettes, took ages for that legislation to come in. Now, of course, you might argue social media and smartphones are kind of in the same category. 20 years on, we're only starting to look at regulation. So too little, too late, I guess, is the point on this.
Yeah.
And so then the interesting thing that's sort of new, I suppose, and there's always an element of what we don't know in this, but by the admission of even the CEOs, so Anthropic CEO Dario Amadeus. Anyway, he says people are surprised that we do not understand our own AI creations, how our own AI creations work. We do not understand it, he says. So when you've got the CEO saying, well, we're just developing these things and we don't understand exactly how they work, but they're going to revolutionize the world and we need to regulate them, then you've kind of got a bit of a worrying scenario. And the other thing is the public don't seem to be too bothered about it because it's not, or even companies for that matter. So Anthropic launched their Mythos product, which apparently can mine, what do you call it, any website in the world very effectively and efficiently. And it's not even featuring on any of the news websites as a news story. So you've got a kind of weird situation where almost everybody seems to have their head in the sand, other than the people who are making the product, who are calling for us not to have our heads in the sand. So probably Cooper seems to be on the right track when he says that we don't even know where to start, because if you don't know what AI does, how can you regulate it? It's very difficult. Yeah. And we've talked about a few things at the edges in the insurance market, but his final sentence is, we're essentially speeding along the highway in an autonomous vehicle without seatbelts or headlights. So it's speeding along at 300 miles an hour in an autonomous vehicle without seatbelts or headlights. So
there we go.
And anyway, I put this up just because of its general point about AI, but also because when people talk about AI and insurance regulation and how we need to be careful. If it is the case, it's not really going to be regulated by governments, then where does insurance start? I think to your point last week, by just saying, well, we're not going to do any of it, maybe is one extreme end of it.
Yeah. There was, I think a carrier had said that they weren't allowing any of their data that they were sharing with third parties to be used, AI to be used on it, which I think I said was, almost an impossible position to take, because AI is so, well, it will be if it's not already embedded in the hardware of the tech that you're using. So you've got to have, it's a balance. I think we were talking about this before. It's the balance between having that kind of regulation or your policy to using AI without crushing the life out of innovation, which is what we often call for on this show, and not just technology innovation, but innovation in mindset and products and solutions. And yes, interesting debate, I think.
Yeah, it is. I think it's kind of going to be very challenging for all industries, but especially insurance, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There's one other thought. So you mentioned kind of even today, I think the social media companies have been kind of dragged into Downing Street to be told that they've got to do something. And like you say, it's decades late. I just wonder whether just bring it into kind of insurers, it's the other way around. Somebody one of the breakfast briefings says it feels like the start of the .com, where Google was just starting to come around and the internet was becoming an interesting tool for business use. And at the same time, we're kind of talking around innovation around that. We're also trying to stop people from using it because we're worried about the risks. I just wonder, I don't know where we are on that. Some organizations I speak to are like plowing ahead and have got plans and innovation hubs and ideas and budget resource to kind of push forward. And then others, like I've just pointed out, have just said, no, you can't use AI on the data. So I don't know if you've got a sense of if there is a general direction of travel, or it's every organization for themselves. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think there's a general direction of travel, because everybody asked me what are the others doing. So I think there is a sort of sense that it's just everybody, it is every man for himself or company for themselves. I think there's the comparison or the analogy with the beginning of the .com boom is true, I think, in the sense that actually those internet services were used by consumers to begin with quite a lot, and less so, if you like, by businesses. They weren't. Amazon took quite a while to get going, for example. And interestingly, this is going back a bit, but when I was working in a company, the IT people were saying we had to learn from the pornography industry how to best design websites, because that's where all the knowledge came from, because that was the fastest advancing part of the internet. So, but then a lot of things were, as you say, were kind of curtailed or stopped or banned for quite a long time. You kind of couldn't use the internet at work to do shopping and things like that, I think, at the beginning. And news sites up until relatively recently weren't allowed, because they were seen as a threat or a risk, an entry point for businesses. So, yeah.
Interesting. Right. Let's move on to kind of data centers. So yeah, I think I saw this on Slipcase. Might have been this morning that there's a problem with insurance coverage. I haven't got the exact story, but I think it was Aon had increased its coverage but it was only after the data center had been operating for a year without any problems that the policy kicked in or something.
Nice.
Yeah, do you want to give us the background on this one, Ben?
Yeah, so I think whatever Aon or brokers are saying, it's a struggle, as they say here at the moment, because these are very big projects and it's new territory in some ways. But they are struggling to get insurance cover, and everyone's being a bit tight-lipped about it. I think the lenders and so on. But there's a few problems. So the risks, unsurprisingly, are kind of natural disasters knocking one of these things out, and disruptions to, say, water supply or electricity, and which they need a lot of, because these centers can run up to they're using up to a gigawatt of energy every hour, which is like running a city, basically, I think.
Wow.
And the very big ones are kind of dominating the marketplace and the capital, in a sense. So they are able, the Metas and so on, are able to set up captives to self-insure some of it, and to use different sources of capital. But that squeezes everybody else, basically, who's developing sites. But there's still limitations from standard insurance, from the normal insurance market. So Meta has got this Hyperion campus in Louisiana, which is $30 billion it costs to set up.
Wow.
30 billion, it's huge. And what's basically a building with computers in it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And but it only got 4 billion of coverage. So it only got a small amount of coverage for that might cover some important things that happen more regularly. But the difficulties are really around, one, where do you put these buildings? So they could be if they're in potentially catastrophe areas or risky areas with floods, hurricanes, and so on, then they are obviously understandably reluctant to underwrite those. But those are the places presumably where it's cheaper and more cost effective to place these, and there aren't people there who are going to you can complain about it or have to be displaced. Then the other one is apparently very difficult, is very few can write, insurers will write BI policies, because we talked about this before, the critical thing in IT is to have uptime, and almost negligible downtime is written into most contracts. I believe it's called 999 code or something. And therefore these contracts are being written, obviously unsurprisingly, by the clients who say we need uptime. So they're saying here, if you have a 45-minute outage at one of these plants, could wipe out 6 months of revenue because of these clauses. So they could pretty much be bankrupted if they get, just a water pipe going or whatever, a lightning strike, anything, So I can see, the insurers would be like, oh my God, this doesn't take much to knock this out, and we don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah,
we can't cover for that loss. So we go back to something we talked about last week, which was this foreseeable loss idea, which is you kind of have to say to the insurer and agree with the insurer, we're covering for these things, and the insurers, we want cover for these things, and the insurer says, yeah, well, I'll do those 8 things, but I'm not doing those other 5.
Yeah.
So you have limitations built in to the contract.
Yeah.
But it's slowing down, which you might say is a good thing. It's slowing down the building of these data centers.
Massive data centers. I was just saying before we came on that they wouldn't be building these near Tunbridge Wells, given the water supply issues that they have on a monthly basis.
Water won't be the chosen provider of water services to these things.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
That'd be hilarious. The whole of the internet breaks. A leaking pipe.
Yeah. How big is that? That must be like That thing there must be enormous.
Yeah. So how much does it cost to build the HS2 debacle? That was like
Well, that was
billion.
It was, but that was a 10-year project, wasn't it? And it was a railway line, right?
Yeah,
through
exactly.
a much bigger project in the sense, much more. It does much more. I don't know what this. Yeah, that's. I mean, imagine getting to work. If you went one end of the building, you'd probably take about an hour and a half to get to the other end.
Yeah, can't find a car parking space.
Which desk am I at today? The hot desk thing.
Yeah, it looks like a chip from a
that's
motherboard.
what I think. That's designed to be like a computer chip, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What a novel idea.
Oh, there you go.
They've taken it. Anyway, there we are. That's a whole world of stuff, isn't it?
It is a whole world of stuff. I think these whole, coming back to the AI companies, they got a real problem with branding. They obviously don't have anybody with any creative. Chat GTP, I mean, that's a terrible name.
Yeah.
And given that AI is probably going to destroy us all, if anybody's watched the Terminator films, then calling the latest AI Open Claw is not a great, not a great move.
No, I mean it's just, and it's kind of they're quite terribly American, aren't they? As well, some of these things as well. I mean, I don't know whether people will understand this, but yeah, no, I generally think that the tech industry comes up with terrible names for its businesses, other than Apple and a few others. But that's rare occurrence. Most of it is deadly dull and uninspiring. Just a little side note. So the other thing linked into this is just, we've talked about the evolution of insurance in a sense, and another thing that's happening with all this kind of changing world and things is that the original kind of models of insurance, so insurance in risk, commercial risk, is a kind of bet. Basically, that was the idea, was that you could get some information and essentially get some money for your information, which would help you to bet on something that would probably, hopefully, not happen. And then you would, make the money.
Yeah.
So, you're betting on an outcome, which is all betting. It's nothing different in insurance.
Yep.
But what has happened now, of course, and you probably read about some of these, is these prediction markets are starting to do these bets on all sorts of different things, like when, whether Jay, what's his face, the
JD Vance.
No, not JD Vance. The chair of the Fed in the US. Who Trump is trying to fire. Now they're trying to say, will he go or will he not? And the argument goes that actually that's a bet that could be quite useful, because you look at the odds and go, oh, I wonder if he'll go, he won't. Well, it's 20-1 odds that he's going to go and all that. So you can kind of, that's useful. But there are other bets, which is, what will he say when he leaves? Will he say goodbye, or so these are kind of ridiculous bets that are being made, and then there are others that are being made on things like strikes. They've been talked about a lot in these wars. When a war starts, which day it starts, what time it starts.
Yeah. And
there's investigations going on into this insider trading. So these prediction markets are growing quite rapidly, and there's one called Polymarket, and you probably bet on them.
I'm not a member of the Tory party, so I wouldn't get involved in that type of betting.
That sort of thing, yeah. So that sort of thing. So Polymarket, Kalshi, if you want to look them up, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm on it.
They aggregate information, and you can bet on all these things. And, but they're beginning to sort of, they're kind of taking, moving on from, if you like, the insurance model and other models into these outcome-based bets. And the trouble is that they're very open to corruption or fraud, and they've had, obviously there's insider trading things that the one you just mentioned, the Conservatives and betting on elections, and then they had one recently with a death threats to a news station, the journalist at a news station, to change the reports that an Iranian missile had hit Jerusalem, struck Jerusalem, because there'd been huge amounts of money bet on the fact that not one missile would get out of Iran and hit anywhere else. And of course,
Yes.
So they tried to bribe this guy, and then they issued death threats. So anyway, so there's just all this kind of betting prediction stuff is taking off in the world of AI, and so I just wonder where again insurance will sit in all of this. Will it retain its? It's going to be a struggle to kind of retain its integrity and its people believing in it, I suppose, in a way, as to whether, because the data's so bad in insurance.
Yeah.
You could argue, well, what the hell are you doing in insurance that's any better than these people are doing in these poly markets? I might as well put my money there, put my capital into that, as to whether there's going to be a disruption to the data center in Louisiana in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's symptomatic of capital can start to move in all sorts of different ways and come from all sorts of different sources. As information becomes more dispersed and available to people.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
It is very interesting. Yeah. And it's all kind of interconnected, isn't it? And as the data, you mentioned the kind of new search engine that can look at every website in the world in seconds or whatever. I mean, it's just you can collect more data that's of better quality in a more rapid time frame than you ever could.
And if you have something that the AI hasn't got, then of course it becomes more valuable.
Yeah,
and that's why things like insider trading. So if you know something that the AI can't know, I had a quick word with the Prime Minister this morning, who said, make sure you're around on Wednesday, the 12th of May at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're kind of onto a winner, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh, dear. Good. Like that. Ben, let's talk about the golf for a bit, because we previewed a bit of the golf last week before it started, the Masters. And when we left it on Friday, it was all to play for. Then Rory took a massive lead on the Friday evening's play, lost it all on the Saturday, which teed it up for a fascinating Sunday evening. And it was pretty exciting, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, it was a bit of a kind of roller coaster for a while, wasn't it? And then somehow he came through.
Yeah.
Even though he's quite an erratic player, really.
Yeah.
He didn't hit many fairways, and he seemed to be in the woods most of the time. Nice woods though, there.
Very nice.
They're not like when I go off the fairway in my golf course. It's like you're in scrub and brambles and God knows what. There, it's like the most pristine wood chippings.
Yeah, all laid out in a row.
That's the place. That's the Masters. They had 2 trees blown down. Did you see that story? 2 big pine trees were blown down in a storm, and they replaced them within 6 weeks.
Wow.
Like, 50-foot pine trees. They replaced them they found 2 50-foot pine trees and planted them.
Crikey.
A strange place.
Well, very, very strange. Very good. Anything good happening this weekend?
I bought his putter. I bought Rory's putter. Well, not his actual putter.
I was just thinking.
But I bought the one that he uses. So I'm going to be up there with him.
Great.
From this weekend.
So that's what you're doing this weekend with everyone else.
That's how I've led into that quite well. I'm going to be doing a new putter, golf course, I'm going to be winning. Yeah. The putter's going to change me.
Winning at life.
Yes.
Good. I've no idea what I'm doing this weekend. It's one of those weekends. My wife's working, so it means that I'm in charge, in inverted commas.
Yeah.
So it all goes to pot.
That's fine. That's fine. And you've got a big win next week, haven't you?
Yep, we have. We've got the DA Strategy Day, which we kind of previewed last week. That's coming together nicely. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be busy. That's good. Thanks for the support, everyone.
You said that sarcastically almost. Oh, thanks for the support, everyone.
Oh, no, I meant it. Sorry. Let me say that again.
Start that again. That was terrible. Like, oh, thanks for the support, everyone.
Thanks for the support, everyone. Appreciate it.
You can edit out the other one. Yeah, edit out the other. That was, oh, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for nothing.
Thanks for coming. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Right. We might be back next week. Depends what happens on Thursday. I might get lynched. But have a good weekend, everybody. And we will see you soon.
Cheers. Bye. Have a good weekend.